2 in the morning. The cry from the nursery. The parent lies in bed for 3 seconds, running the internal calculation that every caregiver knows by heart. The pitch is wrong. The rhythm is off. There are no tears. The onset was too sudden. 0 to full volume, with no build-up, no escalation, no gradual distress arc. Go anyway. Arrive at the crib. The baby is lying there, perfectly calm, face completely dry, and the moment eye contact is made, an immediate, full-face grin. Not a relieved grin, a satisfied grin. The grin of a system that just confirmed its own predictive model. Signal deployed, target responded, response time logged. The parent stands there, deflated, and whispers the thought that will keep them awake for the rest of the night. Did you just play me? The answer from the orbitofrontal cortex is technically yes and fundamentally no. The baby deployed a controlled probe, a fake distress signal into a live environment. And the response was logged, measured, and compared against an internal prediction model that has been running since birth. This was not a game. It was the most consequential quality assurance test in that baby's neural development. And the signal they were reading was not whether you came. It was how you came. This test was not spontaneous. It was not random. It was built on months of data so extensive that the baby's predictive model of your behavior may be more detailed than your own conscious self-assessment. Since birth, the ventral striatum and medial prefrontal cortex have been logging every cry response pair as a contingency entry. Cry at 2 a.m. Response latency, 4 minutes. Cry during feeding. Response latency, 8 seconds. Cry in public. Response latency, immediate. The speed of response, the facial expression upon arrival, the warmth of the first touch, the vocal tone during the initial seconds of contact, whether the caregiver picked the baby up or leaned over the crib, whether the caregiver stayed or left after calming. Thousands of data points, encoded not as conscious memory but as synaptic weights, the statistical summary of an entire relationship, compressed into the connection strengths between neurons in the OFC. By 7 to 8 months, the dataset is large enough to generate testable predictions. The fake cry is the first deliberately designed experiment. Controlled stimulus, known baseline, experimental condition. The baby spent months building this test. The baby built a flight simulator for relationships. Every genuine cry was a real flight, real turbulence, real data, real consequences. The fake cry is the simulation. Same cockpit, same controls, but the baby is watching the instruments instead of experiencing the storm. They are not trying to crash the plane. They are testing whether the autopilot responds the same way during the drill as during real turbulence. And they are reading the instruments with a precision that should be impossible for an organism that cannot yet walk. 4 mechanisms power this flight simulator. The first is the contingency detection circuit. The ventral striatum, working in coordination with the medial prefrontal cortex, has been logging if X then Y relationships since birth. Every genuine cry that produced a caregiver response was a contingency entry. Signal, response, outcome. After hundreds of entries, the system generates reliable predictions. The fake cry is the first deliberate test of those predictions. A controlled probe designed to verify. Does the model hold when the variable changes from genuine to fake? If the response is the same, the model is validated. If the response differs, the model requires updating. The second mechanism is the orbitofrontal cortex attachment security model. The OFC does not store a narrative about the relationship. It stores a statistical model, a continuously updated probability matrix of caregiver response patterns built from thousands of micro-interactions. How fast does she come when I cry at night? Does his face look different when he arrives versus when he checks voluntarily? Is the touch warmer when I am genuinely distressed versus when I need a diaper change? This model does not build from words, promises, or intentions. It builds from data, the rawest, most honest data available. Response patterns under stress. The fake cry stress tests this data. The third mechanism is acoustic differentiation. Spectral analysis of infant vocalizations reveals that fake cries have measurably different acoustic properties from genuine cries. More regular rhythm, lower fundamental frequency, less harmonic distortion, and characteristic monitoring pauses. Brief silences where the infant scans for the response before resuming the signal. The infant brain has learned to produce a phonologically distinct variant of the distress call. It has essentially developed a second register, a controlled signal that mimics the structure of genuine distress while omitting the physiological markers of actual arousal. The fourth mechanism is the right hemisphere social cognition network. The right temporoparietal junction, right inferior frontal gyrus, and right superior temporal sulcus form an interconnected network that processes social contingencies, the relationship between one's own actions and other people's responses. In the fake crying infant, this network is generating an implicit but measurable understanding. My signals change people's behavior in predictable ways. I can test those predictions by modifying my signal and observing the response. This is not manipulation in the adult moral sense. It is the birth of social agency. The first time the brain deliberately deploys a signal to probe the social environment. The 3 to 5 second window after you arrive is where the real test happens. Most parents think the test ends when they show up. It does not. It begins when they show up. The OFC is running a comparison cycle during those first seconds of contact. Response speed, logged. Was it faster or slower than the baseline established during genuine distress episodes? Facial expression, scanned. Were the micro-expressions consistent with concern? Or did irritation register in the brow, the jaw, the set of the mouth? Touch quality, assessed. Was the first contact warm and immediate, or cautious and evaluative? Each data point is compared against the accumulated baseline and encoded into the attachment model. The parent who responds warmly to the fake cry teaches the attachment model. This bond is solid even when I am not in genuine distress. My signaling system works even when the signal is not grounded in real need. The parent who responds with visible frustration teaches a different lesson. This bond is conditional on real need. My signaling system works only when the distress is genuine. Neither lesson is universally wrong. Both are data, and both will shape how this person uses social signals in relationships for years. The deeper revelation is that the baby is not testing whether you love them. The baby's brain cannot conceptualize love in the abstract. What the OFC is testing is something more fundamental: predictability. Does this person's response remain consistent across conditions? Does the response pattern hold when the stimulus changes? Is the attachment model, the statistical summary of thousands of interactions, an accurate predictor of this person's behavior in novel situations? The baby who fake cries and watches your arrival is calibrating the most important reliability model their brain will ever build. The attachment model being stress tested at 8 months is not a temporary file. Longitudinal research in developmental neuroscience has tracked attachment patterns from infancy into adulthood with remarkable consistency. The internal working model of attachment, the probabilistic representation of relationship reliability encoded in the orbitofrontal and medial prefrontal cortices, serves as the foundational template against which all subsequent relationships are evaluated. Securely attached infants, those whose contingency tests produce consistent, warm, predictable responses, show lower cortisol reactivity in adulthood. They demonstrate more adaptive stress responses, more flexible emotional regulation, and relationship patterns characterized by trust, appropriate vulnerability, and effective conflict resolution. Their attachment models predict, signals produce responses. People are reliable. Vulnerability is safe. Insecurely attached infants, those whose contingency tests produced inconsistent, unpredictable, or emotionally volatile responses, show different adult patterns. Hypervigilance in relationships. Difficulty trusting. Emotional suppression or amplification as compensatory strategies. Their attachment models predict signals may or may not produce responses. People are unpredictable. Vulnerability is risky. The baby running the fake cry test at 8 months is writing the foundational code that will execute at 28. The test results being logged into the OFC during those 3-second windows after each fake cry are not ephemeral data. They are the initial values of a model that will be consulted, unconsciously, automatically, below the level of deliberate thought, during every future relationship decision this person makes. What parents call being tested, attachment theory calls the most consequential quality assurance protocol in human development. The parent does not need to respond perfectly to every test. The attachment model is built from thousands of data points, not one. Consistency matters more than perfection. The occasional frustrated arrival does not corrupt the model. It contributes a realistic data point. What builds secure attachment is not flawless response, but reliable, mostly warm, mostly consistent response across time. The model is surprisingly robust. Research on attachment formation shows that the threshold for secure attachment is not perfection, but good enough responsiveness. Attuned, mostly contingent, mostly warm responses approximately 60 to 70% of the time. The remaining 30 to 40% includes normal human variation. The tired response, the frustrated arrival, the delayed pickup. These are noise in the dataset. The model is designed to extract signal from noise, and the signal it extracts is the central tendency, not the extremes. Comment below. Describe the face your baby made the moment after you responded to a cry you knew was fake. That grin, that flash of satisfaction, that look that seemed impossibly knowing for someone who still needs help sitting up. Because that was the orbitofrontal cortex logging a successful test result. The model was consulted, the prediction was made, the response matched, and the baby's brain encoded one more data point under the label: reliable. Return to 2 a.m. The cry, the calculation, the dry face, the grin. Now see the full architecture of what happened in those 60 seconds. The ventral striatum generated the prediction. Cry. Caregiver comes. The OFC refined the prediction with contextual parameters. Nighttime cry, response latency approximately 4 minutes. Facial expression upon arrival will include fatigue and concern. First touch will be pickup. The motor cortex deployed the fake cry. Same acoustic pattern as genuine distress minus the autonomic arousal markers. The baby waited. The ACC monitored. Is the response matching the prediction? The parent appeared in the doorway. The right hemisphere social cognition network activated. Facial expression scan initiated. Micro-expression assessment. Concern present. Irritation absent or minimal. Fatigue consistent with baseline. Approach speed. Consistent with prior nighttime responses. Contact made. The OFC ran the comparison. Predicted response versus actual response. Match quality, high. Model validation, confirmed. The ventral striatum released a dopamine signal. The neurochemical signature of prediction confirmed, not enjoyment of deception. The grin was dopaminergic, not sadistic. The baby was not enjoying the trick. The baby was experiencing the reward of accurate prediction. The same dopamine signature that fires in an adult scientist when an experiment produces expected results. The parent who showed up at 2 a.m. feeling played was actually passing the most important quality assurance test in their child's neural development. Not because they responded, but because their response was consistent with the prediction. The model held. The autopilot performed the same in the simulation as in real turbulence, and the baby's brain encoded the result into the attachment model with a single, weighted update. This person responds predictably under controlled conditions, matching genuine distress parameters. Increase reliability estimate by a small but permanent increment. If someone in your life feels foolish for responding to cries they suspect are fake, send them this. Because every response was a data point being written into the attachment model that will run this child's relationships for decades. They were not being played. They were building something permanent, one 2 a.m. test at a time. The flight simulator was never designed to crash the plane. Every drill was designed to prove the system works. Every fake cry was a controlled probe asking the only question the attachment system needs answered in the first year of life. If I signal, will this person respond? The baby who tests the most is not the most manipulative. It is the baby whose brain is investing the most computational resources into getting this model right. Because getting it wrong has consequences that outlast childhood. A baby whose model predicts unreliable responses will build compensatory strategies, suppressing signals because they were learned to be ineffective, amplifying signals because moderate signals were learned to be insufficient, or withdrawing from signaling entirely because the model predicts low return on investment. None of these strategies are conscious choices. They are statistical outcomes of a model that was calibrated during the first year by the data the caregiver provided during tests, exactly like the one the baby ran at 2 a.m. The flight simulator has completed its testing phase. The autopilot has been evaluated under controlled conditions. The data has been logged, weighted, and integrated into a model that is now the default operating system for this person's relationship behavior. The model does not require conscious access to function. It runs in the background, faster than deliberate thought, more influential than rational analysis, and shaped entirely by the data it received during a testing phase that the test subject did not know was a test. Every time the parent showed up at 2 a.m. exhausted, knowing the cry was fake, feeling played but going anyway, every single one of those arrivals was logged as confirmation data. Response, present. Warmth, measured. Consistency, tracked. Predictability, confirmed. And each confirmation incrementally adjusted the model toward the output that will determine, decades from now, whether this person trusts easily or guards carefully, reaches out in crisis or stays silent, loves openly or holds back. The baby who fake cried and watched you arrive was running the most important experiment of their developmental career. They were not testing your patience. They were testing the fundamental reliability of human connection, the single variable that the attachment system was designed to assess above all others. And every time you showed up, the answer was permanently encoded. Yes. Every time. Even at 2 a.m. Even when you knew. Even when the cry was fake and the face was dry and the grin appeared the instant you crossed the threshold. The answer was always the same. And the baby's brain, running the most honest quality assurance system in the house, logged it exactly as it was. Reliable. Permanent. Proven.